All right, this is a story that is definitely trending today. An Ohio woman has gone viral on TikTok after a disturbing discovery that she made in her yard.
Okay, so everybody's here. There's a tent set up and there's 9 police officers and CSI in the backyard.
In October 2024, Ohio woman Katie Santry was digging a hole in her backyard. Her objective was to install a fence after she felt something unusual happen last night. Something mysterious that broke the screen of her laptop and messed up her entire workstation. However, she failed to recognize that digging that hole in her backyard would become the talk of the town. That's because while digging the hole, Katie's shovel struck something strange beneath the soil. Something mysterious and disturbing she never imagined. And when she looked closer, what she uncovered was not a tree root or a rock. It was the edge of a rolled-up rug buried about 2.5 feet deep. Confused but curious, Katie brushed back more dirt to reveal the full outline of the mysterious carpet. At that moment, she had no way of knowing that this odd discovery would soon turn her life upside down and grab the attention of the entire internet. Katie reacted the way many people might in 2024. She pulled out her phone, opened TikTok, and recorded a quick video about the strange find. In the video, her voice shook slightly, a mix of nervous excitement as she showed her viewers the dirty, half-buried rug poking through the earth. She wondered aloud how a rug could end up buried in her backyard. Was it just garbage left behind by someone? Or as her mind began to wander, and soon the minds of countless strangers online, could it be hiding something far more disturbing? Katie Santry didn't set out to become the center of a police investigation. She just wanted to post a TikTok about a weird day at home. But 5 days later, her backyard was taped off by homicide detectives. Cadaver dogs were hitting on buried evidence, and millions of people viewed it, shared it, and begged for updates. The buried rug became an internet obsession. Online detectives filled the comment sections with theories, everything from hidden treasure to an old mob crime. But one idea rose above the rest and captured the public imagination. What if a dead body was wrapped inside that rug? That chilling possibility transformed Katie's backyard from a quiet suburban town into the center of an amateur true crime investigation. As the views climbed and the theories spread, Katie found herself in the middle of a story much bigger than she ever expected. Some viewers treated her like the heroine of a real-life thriller. Others began to question her honesty. By the end of the week, police investigators would be combing through her property. Cadaver dogs would be brought in. News vans would be parked along her street. Over 100,000 people would tune in live as events reached their peak. The world wanted one thing, the truth. Was there a hidden crime scene buried under that rug? Or was it all an elaborate hoax? At the heart of what quickly became known as the rug scandal was one simple but explosive question. Did Katie Santry fake a dead body for clout? Built in 1967, only one family had lived in this house. However, nothing unusual ever heard or witnessed about this place, but there was one thing that always gave a mysterious vibe. It was a Japanese maple tree, later identified as a bloodgood maple, which is known for its dark red leaves and a steep price tag. Surprisingly, it was carefully planted on top of the rug, a strange sight that was never witnessed before. Katie and Brandon exchanged confused glances. They tossed around theories. Maybe a previous homeowner used it as a cheap weed barrier. Maybe it had been an easy way to fill a hole in the yard. As they examined it, they saw parts of the rug's rubber backing still clinging to the fabric. It was waterlogged and tangled with roots, too stuck to pull out by hand. In the end, they decided not to mess with it any further. It was odd, but it didn't seem dangerous. They still had fence posts to set, and the daylight was fading. Shrugging it off for the time being, they pushed the dirt back over the exposed edge of the rug and moved on with their project. Looking back, Katie would later say that this was the moment before everything changed. For a few days, life went on as usual. The strange rug stayed buried, out of sight, and ignored, until something happened inside the house. One morning, Katie walked down to her sunroom office and immediately stopped in her tracks. The room was a mess. Papers were scattered across the floor. Small decorations that had sat neatly on her desk were knocked over. But what caught her attention most was the laptop. Its screen was shattered, not just cracked, but completely broken, with spider-webbed lines branching across the glass. It looked like something had slammed into it with force. Yet the laptop was sitting exactly where she had left it the night before. The office doors had been closed, the house alarm had not gone off. Nothing else appeared to be stolen or broken. Katie's first reaction was frustration. She assumed someone in the house must have been goofing around and damaged it. She questioned everyone. Her boyfriend denied being in the office. His 2 kids said they hadn't touched anything. Katie's own young son said the same. Nobody admitted to being near the sunroom. Nobody had heard anything. And there were no signs of anything falling or any other explanation. Katie felt a wave of unease. How could a laptop just break on its own? Her mind jumped, almost without her realizing it, back to the rug buried outside. She said it out loud, half as a joke and half because she could not shake the feeling. Is there a dead body in that rug? Or is it the ghost of the rug's past? She laughed after she said it. It sounded ridiculous. But the thought refused to leave her mind. There was no logical explanation for the broken laptop, and there was something else that had made this situation even stranger. Katie remembered that the house next door had a dark history of its own. Their elderly neighbor had passed away in her home on the very same day Katie's family moved in the previous October. Shortly after, the neighbor's house had been boarded up and left empty. At the time, it had seemed like a strange but isolated event. Now, with the combination of the neighbor's death, the buried rug, and the destroyed laptop, the coincidence felt harder to ignore. Rather than scare her, the situation excited Katie's imagination. She would later admit she had always been drawn to true crime and the paranormal. Her mind naturally leapt to the most dramatic possibility. Standing in the wrecked sunroom, goosebumps prickled on her arms. She let the wild theories run free. Was her house haunted by a restless spirit? Could the rug be hiding a long-forgotten crime? Was there something more sinister buried in her backyard? The ideas sounded crazy, but they were also thrilling. With a mix of humor and real curiosity, Katie opened TikTok again. She switched her phone to selfie mode and hit record. In what would become her very first video about the rug, she looked into the camera, her concern clear for anyone to see. And just like that, the story began. Speaking to the camera, she recounted the strange discovery of the buried carpet and the inexplicable destruction of her laptop. Then she posed her now infamous questions to the internet. What on earth happened? Is there a ghost breaking my stuff? She wondered aloud, before adding the kicker, is there a dead body in that rug? In the background of the video, the sunroom's disarray can be seen, lending credence to her bewilderment. Katie's tone was a mix of tongue-in-cheek and truly unsettled. She half smiled as if joking, but her eyes darted with real, nervous energy. She posted the TikTok video on October 1st, 2024, with a caption conveying her shock and the mystery at hand. It didn't take long for the video to gain traction. At first, a few friends and followers left amused comments, probably just a squirrel or something. But as the hours passed, the TikTok algorithm picked up the video and started showing it to more people. Something about this ordinary woman possibly stumbling onto a murder mystery in her own backyard was irresistible. A mix of relatable domestic life and extraordinary mystery made the perfect viral content. By the end of the day, the video's view count was surging into the hundreds of thousands. Unbeknownst to Katie, she had just lit the fuse on a social media power keg. The hashtag rug mystery, and soon hashtag what's in the rug, was about to become TikTok's latest obsession. Katie woke up on October 2nd to find that overnight, her TikTok video had exploded in popularity. It amassed millions of views within a day or two, and her follower count was climbing exponentially.
And to my surprise, we had over 120,000 people watching this live stream happen in my backyard.
She went from a modest following to tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of followers almost overnight. In fact, within the first 72 hours, Katie gained more than 1.4 million followers as people around the world tuned in for updates. She was floored and admittedly exhilarated by the viral response. All hell broke loose on TikTok, as she later put it, marveling at how quickly her life had turned into a trending topic. In those initial viral videos, Katie played the role of an intrigued and slightly spooked homeowner. letting the audience share in her discovery. She took viewers out to the backyard, showing the patch of ground where the rug remained buried. With a glint of dramatic flair, she documented each development in short TikTok clips, often ending them on cliffhangers to keep everyone coming back for more. It became a multi-part series, ultimately around 22 parts, chronicling the backyard rug mystery. Each part garnered huge engagement. One particular video update gathered over 10 million views on its own. Viewers were enthralled. TikTok's true crime and paranormal communities especially latched onto the story. Thousands of comments poured in on each video, ranging from helpful suggestions to wild theories. Some users urged Katie to call the police immediately, suspecting the worst. Others jokingly suggested she might have a ghostly roommate. Many were simply hooked and hungry for the next chapter of the saga, treating Katie's TikTok page like an episodic reality show. Amid the fascination, a current of skepticism and concern began to flow in the comments as well. There was an almost interactive element. Commenters effectively directed the next steps of the investigation. For instance, after seeing Katie's initial posts, countless viewers implored her to keep digging up the rug. They had to know what was inside. Some urged caution. Don't dig it up by yourself. What if it is a body? You could tamper with evidence. Others shot off practical advice. One user wrote, "Get a cadaver dog or ground-penetrating radar." The feedback was a mixed bag of excited armchair detectives and worried advisors. Katie, energized by the attention, embraced the crowdsourced investigation. She posted follow-up videos showing her and her family's attempts to dig out more of the rug. However, this proved to be a difficult task. In one TikTok, Katie panned over the half-excavated carpet and explained that the ground was rock-hard due to a recent drought. They had managed to uncover only a small additional portion of the rug. The effort was hampered by the environment. That bloodgood maple tree's roots were thicker on the area, and a large bush was planted just a couple feet away. In frustration, Katie joked that the rug was just the tip of the iceberg. Who knew how far under the yard it might stretch? After laboring with normal shovels and getting nowhere, Katie eventually posted a video with a defeated sigh. She was giving up on digging. "I can't get any further," she lamented to her viewers, hands dirty and blistered. At that point, she had around 10,000 followers, a number that already thrilled her before the real viral explosion happened. She figured this was the anticlimactic end of the adventure. The rug would stay buried, the mystery unsolved, and life would go back to normal. But TikTok had other plans. Just when Katie thought the story was dying down, it caught a second wind and went truly viral. The video of her giving up was exactly the cliffhanger that spurred more interest. It prompted a deluge of comments begging her not to abandon the search. Engagement on her page skyrocketed. Within hours, "Don't give up, we need to know," became the dominant refrain. Influential TikTokers even duetted or stitched her videos, spreading the story to broader audiences. One particularly memorable video Katie posted during this wave showed her holding a small metal tag she found attached to the maple tree above the rug. The tag read, "Bloodgood, the tree's species." With a dark sense of humor, Katie addressed the camera. "If I were a murderer with a sense of humor, I'd plant a bloodgood tree on top of a dead body and be like, ha!" She chuckled, clearly finding the coincidence morbidly funny. That video blew up as well. Katie later noted it was one of her most viewed clips. The internet ate up the gallows humor and the almost too-on-the-nose detail of a blood tree potentially marking a burial spot. At this stage, the tone on Katie's TikTok page was an odd mix. On one hand, there was genuine suspense and concern, a sense that a real, true crime revelation could be imminent. On the other hand, Katie often kept things light, even laughing and making jokes in her videos. She didn't truly seem convinced there was a corpse under her lawn, not yet anyway. A lot of viewers appreciated her good-natured approach, finding the content entertaining rather than distressing. "This is like a live murder mystery show," one commenter exclaimed. Some fans remarked that Katie's situation was like a crossover of HGTV and a ghost hunting show, fixing up an old house only to stumble on possible paranormal or criminal intrigue. However, as the audience swelled, not everyone was applauding Katie's conduct. Some astute followers began to question her decisions. For example, people noticed that she would often promise to do something like digging further or revealing a new finding, and then delay it, citing some obstacle. She told viewers the ground was too solid to continue digging, which was true to an extent given the circumstances. She also expressed reluctance to destroy more of her yard or kill the large bush nearby just to get the rug out. While many found these reasons understandable, others started suspecting that Katie might be purposely stalling to string the story along. After all, the longer the mystery dragged out, the more views and followers she amassed. "She's milking this for engagement," one skeptical user commented. In discussion forums, a narrative quietly emerged. Could Katie be manufacturing drama for TikTok clout? "I'm starting to believe this is all a farce. But why did the ghost destroy $1,000 plus laptop? Break a $5 mug, geez. Honestly, I can't believe this is happening." At this point, this was still a fringe view. The majority of Katie's new followers seemed to take her videos in good faith, a curious homeowner navigating a bizarre situation. In fact, the mob mentality was more aimed at solving the mystery than accusing Katie of anything. Some internet sleuths went into overdrive, searching local missing persons databases and cold case records. If a body was buried in Katie's yard, whose could it be? People began posting theories that connected the rug to various unsolved cases in Ohio. There were names of real missing people thrown around, often without any concrete link, pure conjecture tying tragedies to an otherwise ordinary elderly couple who previously owned the house. Katie's comment sections became inundated with armchair detectives speculating about murders and disappearances that could somehow be related. It went so far that the previous homeowners, a pair of now 90-something retirees living in a nursing home, were being eyed suspiciously by strangers on the internet. Strangers dredged up the old couple's names and public records, spinning dark fantasies that they may have killed someone and hidden the evidence under a rug in the yard decades ago. This was pure speculation with zero evidence, essentially an online witch hunt. But it demonstrated how fervently people were investing in the narrative of a buried body.
They just called me. They are sending detectives and cadaver dogs here in the next.
Amid the madness, Katie maintained her TikTok updates, neither confirming nor denying any particular theory. She mostly stuck to showing what she physically knew. There is a rug, it's hard to dig up, weird things happen in my house, I don't have answers yet. But behind the scenes, she too is growing more curious, and perhaps a bit anxious about finding a resolution. As entertaining as the viral fame was, Katie started to grapple with the moral weight of the situation. What if there really is a body? How could I just walk away from that, she thought. In one interview, she recalled thinking, how could you not help that person find peace? How could you not help a family? The possibility, however remote, that an actual victim lay under her lawn gnawed at her conscience. It was this sense of responsibility, she said, that eventually pushed her to take the next big step, involving law enforcement. By now, the story had ballooned beyond TikTok. Mainstream media outlets picked it up, intrigued by the sensational headlines it promised. On October 3rd, People magazine ran an article about Katie's buried rug mystery, complete with Katie's own account of events, and noted how the internet was convinced it's a dead body. As the views on Katie Santry's TikTok videos skyrocketed, it wasn't just curious strangers on the internet who were paying attention anymore. Local Ohio news stations quickly caught wind of the viral saga and started reporting on it. One by one, different outlets ran with the story. What started as a quirky mystery on social media was now being treated like real news. Every time Katie posted a new TikTok update, it seemed like an online blog or news site had an article written about it within hours. The media coverage gave the whole thing an extra boost of legitimacy. It wasn't just a TikTok trend anymore. Katie had become something of a local celebrity, an unexpected internet mystery figure who had everyone hooked. For Katie, it was surreal. Just a few days earlier, she'd been filming casual TikToks about her life at home. Now she was being talked about on news sites and radio shows. Her backyard had turned into the internet's latest favorite crime scene, or at least potential crime scene. With public interest at a fever pitch, the pressure on Katie only grew. The comments on her videos became louder and more urgent. It seemed like every other message was saying the same thing. Call the cops already.
Okay, I finally did it. I called the police. They're sending someone here.
At first, Katie hesitated. Deep down, she was nervous about actually getting law enforcement involved. She kept thinking, what if she called and it turned out to be absolutely nothing? She imagined the whole thing, her trying to explain to a police officer that she was worried about a rug. It sounded ridiculous even in her own head. In her words, she worried it would be the dumbest call the police get today. And honestly, she wasn't wrong for thinking that. It's not every day that someone rings up the cops to report a piece of old carpet. Her boyfriend, Brandon, was even more skeptical. While he had been supportive of Katie's TikTok hobby and mostly went along with her updates, he drew the line at calling the police. He thought the whole thing was a step too far. Katie later said that Brandon thought she was clinically insane for even considering it. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea. "What are you going to tell them?" he asked her one night, genuinely baffled. Katie just shrugged. "I'm going to tell them there is a rug," she said simply. As far as she was concerned, that was enough. She didn't need to make it sound bigger than it was. Just tell the truth, weird or not. But still, Katie dragged her feet a little longer, debating whether she should really go through with it. But the comments kept coming, and deep down she couldn't ignore the small voice in her head telling her that if there was even the slightest chance something serious was buried there, she had to find out. So, on the morning of October 2nd, just 2 days after her first TikTok about the rug, Katie finally did it. She took a deep breath and dialed the Columbus Police Department's non-emergency line. She rehearsed what she was going to say in her head, determined to sound as normal as possible. When someone picked up, she tried to keep her voice steady and calm. "I know this sounds dumb," she said, "but I found a rug buried in my backyard. There might be something in it." She braced for laughter or maybe even a little scolding. But to her surprise, the dispatcher was polite and didn't sound fazed at all. They simply took down her information and told her that a couple of officers would come by to check it out. 15 minutes later, 2 patrol cars pulled up in front of her house. Katie's stomach did a flip as she watched the officers step out. She led them around to the backyard, heart pounding, wondering if they would laugh or roll their eyes. Instead, they took one look at the half-buried carpet and gave each other a glance. According to Katie, one of them said it was super weird. Not exactly standard police work, but not something to ignore either. The officers crouched near the edge of the rug, poking around a little, inspecting the scene. They didn't dismiss it. They admitted it was strange. But they also explained the reality of the situation. Bringing in a whole forensics team or excavation crew would take time, money, and approval. And right now, they didn't have enough reason to do that. A rug in the ground, even a deeply buried one, wasn't proof of a crime. If Katie had found a bone or if there had been any obvious sign of blood or human remains, that would be a different story. But as it stood, all they had was carpet. Without more evidence, they couldn't justify sending in a big team to dig it up. The officers were polite but firm. They suggested Katie do more research on the property. Maybe talk to neighbors, see if anyone knew anything about the house's history. Maybe she would find a simple explanation, one that didn't involve crime scenes or ghosts. Katie nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and frustration. Part of her had wanted the police to swoop in and solve the mystery, but another part was glad they hadn't found anything serious right away. It was clear the rug mystery wasn't going to be solved that easily. One officer even joked that she might need an excavator to get it out, something their department wasn't about to roll in without good reason. Essentially, they left Katie with, "Keep an eye on it, let us know if you find something more." So the initial police visit ended without any digging. It was a bit deflating for Katie. She'd worked up the nerve to call them, only to be gently turned away. One might think this would bring the saga to a halt. If the police weren't immediately jumping on it, maybe it truly was nothing serious. But the internet was far from ready to let go. In fact, when Katie updated her TikTok followers about the police's response, the online sleuths only became more determined. Many commenters were dissatisfied, even distrustful of the police's lack of action. "Police won't do anything until it's too late," one wrote, implying maybe Katie should escalate the issue herself. Others took this as confirmation that Katie needed to dig it up on her own. Since authorities wouldn't help, it was up to her now. The collective audience, in a sense, pushed Katie onward. Katie herself didn't sit idle. Taking the officer's advice, she switched into researcher mode. She called the real estate listing agent who had sold them the house and inquired about the prior owners. By coincidence, the agent put her in touch with the daughter of the original homeowners, the elderly couple who had lived there for decades until moving to a nursing home. In a phone call, Katie explained the odd discovery to their daughter, who was understandably surprised. Katie eventually heard back from the daughter of the original homeowners. According to Katie, the daughter was just as confused as everyone else. She said she had no idea why a rug would be buried in the backyard. They talked about a few possibilities. The family had owned dogs over the years, but none of them had been buried in the property. Instead, they had all been cremated when they passed. So the theory was that it was some sort of pet grave wrapped in a rug, and that was starting to look unlikely. The daughter seemed genuinely baffled, but she also took the situation seriously. She told Katie she was actually on her way to visit her parents, now in their 90s, at the nursing home. She promised to ask them if they remembered anything about a buried rug. For Katie, this was a small victory. Even if they were still stuck with a mystery, at least now the original owner's family was involved. It gave her something to tell her growing audience on TikTok without having to tear up more of her yard. She posted an update explaining the new development, telling her viewers they were now waiting to hear back from the elderly couple's daughter. It turned into another cliffhanger. What would the original owners say? Were they going to solve the mystery once and for all? TikTok waited anxiously. Even People magazine ran a story about it, saying TikTok was hanging in suspense while waiting for the daughter to report back. Some viewers hoped for a simple explanation. Maybe the old couple would say something like, "Oh, that rug? We buried it back in 1985 when we were redoing the basement carpet and needed to get rid of it." A boring answer would mean no crime, no drama, but it would at least end the guessing game. Others, of course, let their imaginations run wild. They dreamed of a much darker confession. What if the elderly couple admitted to burying something, or someone, under the tree? What if the rug was hiding more than just old carpet? While waiting for news, Katie started thinking about her next move. She was beginning to realize that the police were unlikely to take further action unless she would give them something more concrete. If she wanted real help, she would probably need to show them that there was a serious reason to be concerned. So Katie decided to do what TikTok had been telling her to do from the very beginning: dig the rug out. But this time she planned to be more efficient about it. No more struggling with a basic shovel alone. She gathered a few friends, all armed with better tools, and organized what she called a digging party. The idea was simple: get a group together, work as a team, and try to finally pull the rug out of the ground. Once it was out, they could see if anything was wrapped inside. Either they would find something that confirmed everyone's worst fears, or they would prove once and for all that it was just a rug and nothing more. On the day of the digging party, Katie and her friends got to work. They had shovels, a pickaxe, and a lot of determination. They managed to dig up more of the rug than Katie had been able to uncover before. The fabric stretched farther than she expected, disappearing under the fence line. They worked for hours, digging and sweating, but the progress was slow. The rug was deep and tangled in the roots of the now damaged bloodgood maple tree. At one point, they realized they had uprooted the expensive tree entirely. Some of Katie's TikTok followers, especially those who were big on gardening, were horrified when she posted about it later. The bloodgood tree was worth $1,000, and to some it was almost a crime to dig it up. Despite all the hard work, the digging party ended with the rug still partially buried. It was stuck too deep, and they could not get it out with hand tools alone. Katie looked over her torn-up yard, feeling frustrated and defeated. They had tried their best, but the mystery was still unsolved. After that, Katie knew there was really only one option left. She had to press the police again, and this time she could not afford to be polite about it. The weight of it all was starting to get to her. What if there really was something bad wrapped in that rug? What if she ignored it and later found out she had overlooked something important? Katie didn't want to be the person who brushed it off and moved on, only for a bigger tragedy to be uncovered later. She was still worried about being seen as dramatic or wasting police time, but she decided it was worth the risk. This time she planned to insist they take a closer look. What she didn't know was that things were already happening behind the scenes. The viral story had spread so far that it caught the attention of some higher-ups in law enforcement. The mystery in her backyard had gotten too big to ignore. On October 3rd, as Katie was planning to call again or perhaps do one more dig attempt, she got an unexpected phone call. It was the Columbus Police Homicide Unit. They'd been briefed on the situation. Perhaps those initial officers reported it up their chain. Or more likely, they saw the TikToks going viral and realized they needed to cover their bases. The detective on the line told Katie they wanted to come by with a special team to investigate further. Specifically, they wanted to bring canine units, cadaver dogs, to sniff around the area of the buried rug. Katie's heart leaped in her throat. This was becoming very real now. She agreed, of course, and they arranged to come that evening. After hanging up, Katie took a breath and then promptly updated TikTok. The police were officially on the case and cadaver dogs were coming. The tone of her updates shifted at this point. The joking slowed down and genuine nervousness crept in. "Guys, the cops are bringing dogs," she said in a wide-eyed video. "This might actually happen." The comments went wild. Finally, some closure might be imminent. But an undercurrent of anxiety rippled through her followers. Cadaver dogs are trained to detect human remains, meaning the police now considered it a plausible scenario that something or someone dead could indeed be there. Katie toggled between excitement and panic. She confessed later that in that moment, she truly didn't think there's a dead body down there. She assumed it would turn out to be nothing, yet the situation had escalated beyond her control. What had she set in motion? If this turned out to be a homicide, her fun viral story would become a grueling real-life nightmare. On the other hand, if it turned out to be nothing at all, would everyone think she wasted police time for publicity? Those worries churned in her head as the clock inched towards the evening of October 3rd. By late afternoon on October 3rd, news of the planned cadaver dog search had spread like wildfire across social media. A massive audience gathered online to witness what would happen next. Katie decided to livestream the event on TikTok, realizing that countless people wanted to watch it in real time. She propped her phone up in view of the backyard where the action would occur. As the sun began to set, 2 Columbus police detectives arrived, accompanied by a pair of special trained canine dogs. These weren't just any dogs. They were cadaver dogs trained to sniff out the scent of human remains. The officers were all business. They understood the delicate balance here, treating it seriously yet hoping it was a false alarm. On TikTok Live, viewers poured in by the thousands. The number climbed rapidly, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 and beyond, as people from around the world tuned in to Katie's feed. Comments flooded the screen faster than anyone could read, a blur of emojis and exclamations. "I'm here from Reddit. What's happening? OMG, the dogs are coming out now. This is insane." Katie's phone camera was pointed at the patch of yard where the rug remained. In the frame, one could see the yellow police tape that officers had strung up to cordon the immediate area. Yes, the yard was officially taped off as a potential crime scene now. The dimming daylight and the shaky cam gave the whole case a tense cinematic quality. Katie occasionally narrated in a hushed voice for the live stream, but mostly we could hear the murmur of the officers conferring and the panting of the dogs as they got to work. The first cadaver dog, a German shepherd with a distinguished canine vest, was led into the yard by its handler. They approached the spot where the rug was buried. The dog sniffed eagerly around the disturbed soil and exposed bit of carpet. Seconds later, to everyone's astonishment, the dog sat down firmly right on top of the spot. This is the trained signal that the dog has detected the scent of human decomposition. On the live stream, you could hear Katie gasp audibly. The TikTok chat feed exploded. "He sat." People were typing frantically. "Oh my gosh, it signaled." One commenter wrote, "My heart just dropped." Even through his screen, the shock was palpable. Katie later said, "I honestly didn't truly believe it was a dead body until the dog sat. That was the moment reality punched her in the gut." The officers seemed a bit surprised too, but they kept professional composure. Almost immediately, the second cadaver dog, a Labrador, was brought over as a confirmatory test. This dog sniffed around the same area, circling a few times. Katie held her breath, hand over her mouth. And then dog number 2 also sat down right at the rug site. A double confirmation. On TikTok Live, chaos ensued. Over 100,000 live viewers watched Katie's reaction. The camera briefly flipped toward her face. She looked pale and in shock. "I started shaking," she later recounted at that moment. She could be heard exclaiming to someone off camera, "They both sat! They both sat!" The police immediately told Katie that, while this was a significant development, it might not mean anything yet. A cadaver's dog alert doesn't guarantee a body. It means they picked up some odor that could come from human remains, but could also come from other sources like old blood or even decaying animal remains. The officers on scene tried to keep everyone level-headed. One was overheard telling Katie in a calm voice, "This doesn't necessarily mean there's a body. It could be something small like a trace of blood." But for the viewers and for Katie, those dogs sitting was tantamount to confirmation of their worst fear. The collective internet conclusion was, there's obviously a body. In fact, one sensational Bored Panda article would later headline it exactly that. There's obviously a body, after describing the dog's behavior. This was the high drama moment everyone had been waiting for, and it did not disappoint in terms of suspense. Katie's emotions swung from excitement to terror in an instant. On one hand, this validated all the investment people had in the story. It was proof something truly was off down there. On the other hand, Katie's home was now a potential crime scene. Police told her they would likely have to dig up the area and investigate fully, which meant her property would be swarmed by law enforcement and media. Katie, overwhelmed, blurted out a question that some of her TikTok followers had been urging. Do I need a lawyer? She was half joking, half serious. The idea that she might somehow become a suspect clearly crossed her mind, or at least minds of onlookers who were spamming the chat with, "Get a lawyer, girl." One commenter emphatically typed, "Don't say another word without a lawyer present." Even though at this point Katie was simply a homeowner who reported something, there was no reason to think she had done anything wrong. The police on scene responded to her query reassuringly. According to Katie, they told her they were well aware that she was the one who called them and that she was cooperating. They had no concerns it was me, she recounted later, meaning the cops didn't view her as a suspect at all. Indeed, if foul play was involved, it likely happened long before Katie ever lived there. Still, the fact that she asked that question, "Do I need a lawyer?" struck some viewers as odd. A rumor later spread that one officer remarked she seemed too excited about everything, as if enjoying the drama. There's no confirmed footage of an officer saying that, but the mere idea fed into a growing narrative among skeptics that Katie might not be as innocent and wide-eyed as she appeared. For the moment, though, Katie appeared more frazzled than excited. After the dogs alerted, the police told her they would secure the scene for the night and return first thing in the morning with a full forensics team to start digging in earnest. They advised her to stop livestream and step back. This was officially a police matter now. Katie complied, but not before taking one last glance at her TikTok comments. People were in a frenzy. "OMG, this is real now. I'm freaking out. Katie, stay safe." She addressed the audience and said she'd end the live now that news crews were arriving. Indeed, she had noticed local news vans pulling up outside her house. The media had been alerted, possibly by the commotion or police radio chatter, and they weren't going to miss this sensational story. Katie gave a nervous wave to the camera and signed off, promising an update as soon as she could. The TikTok live stream ended, leaving tens of thousands of viewers buzzing with adrenaline and speculation in its wake. Inside her house that night, Katie barely slept. She later confessed, "Honestly, if I thought for a second this was going to happen, I probably wouldn't have done it on live." The gravity of what might lie beneath her yard sank in fully. She was terrified, not only of what might be found, but also what it might mean for her family and home. Would her backyard become a full-fledged crime scene? Would they have to move out if it turned out to be a murder site? As these dark possibilities swirled, another part of Katie, the part that had been basking in internet fame just a day before, felt a twinge of, dare we say, excitement. This was the ultimate outcome that had kept people hooked, and it was unfolding right now in her life. It's likely a confusing mix of feelings, genuine fear and stress, but also the surreal thrill of being at the center of something so dramatic that thousands care about. Outside, police maintained a presence through the night, guarding the taped-off section of the yard to ensure it remained undisturbed until the formal dig. The Santry house, which days ago had been a normal suburban home, now glowed under the harsh light of a portable floodlight the police set up over the backyard. A news crew or two remained posted on the street, broadcasting live hints about the developing story for the late-night news. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, undoubtedly stunned that the quiet family next door was now headline news. On TikTok and other social platforms, discussions ran rampant throughout the night. TikTok gossip forums lit up with threads dissecting Katie's every move during the live stream. Some felt sorry for her. Poor woman, she didn't sign up for actually finding a body. This is going to haunt her. Others were more critical. She was smiling when asking about a lawyer. WTF? Who smiles at a time like this? A divide was forming between those who saw Katie as a relatable accidental investigator and those who were starting to suspect she relished the limelight a bit too much. One thing was certain. By morning, everyone would be awaiting the results of the dig with bated breath. Katie managed a brief update on TikTok late that night. Once she was off live and collected herself, she posted a short video in which she spoke directly to her phone camera, eyes still wide. They're coming back first thing in the morning to dig. I'll update you guys on whatever comes of this." She tried to steady her voice and added, "Hopefully we can all laugh about this tomorrow," as if clinging to the hope that this would end as a funny, harmless anecdote rather than a tragedy. It was a telling glimpse of her mindset. She hoped nothing sinister would be found. The video ended with her biting her lip anxiously. Millions saw that update within hours. It was the calm before the climax of this saga. As October 4th dawned, the world, or at least a large chunk of the internet, was on the edge of its seat. What, if anything, lay beneath the buried rug? And, by extension, what would become of Katie Santry's sudden and strange brush with virality? The answers are only a few hours away. On the morning of October 4th, 2024, a fleet of law enforcement vehicles descended on the 800 block of Cummington Road in Columbus. Katie's address was now well known to both media and curious locals. A forensics team, including crime scene investigators, CSI, and additional officers, arrived to carry out the excavation that the cadaver dogs had necessitated. They set up a white tent in the backyard over the site to give themselves a controlled environment, and perhaps shield the grisly work in case a body truly was found. Officers expanded the cordon around Katie's property, and the atmosphere was that of a serious investigation. Neighbors gathered at a distance, and local news reporters stood at the ready with microphones, delivering live updates for the morning broadcasts. It was as if a crime drama was being filmed on location, except it was all unscripted and very real for the people involved. Katie, now running on fumes of adrenaline and anxiety, watched from a window and occasionally from a distance outside. The police had politely asked her and her family to stay back while they worked. She respected that, but her nerves were running wild. She did, however, film bits of what she could see and later posted them to TikTok as asynchronous updates. She didn't live stream the digging out of respect for the seriousness of the situation, but still documented parts of it. In one TikTok clip from that morning, Katie shows the tent and the cluster of officers in her yard from afar. She speaks quietly over the footage. "There's a tent set up, and there's 9 police officers and CSI in the backyard. They've blocked how far I'm allowed to go, and they're bringing equipment in now." Her voice trembles. This was clearly overwhelming. The visual of multiple investigators combing through her property drove home the gravity of what was happening. At approximately 9 a.m., the digging commenced in earnest. The CSI team carefully began excavating the area around the buried rug, using shovels and trowels, sifting soil methodically. They cut away roots and dirt, slowly unearthing the mystery object. Katie could only peek occasionally, but later descriptions from the police indicated that several small rug pieces were removed from the ground over the course of a few hours. It seemed the carpet had perhaps disintegrated or torn into pieces underground, making the process more painstaking. Soil samples were taken, and everything was checked on site for any traces of remains. By midday, the dig team had exhumed all the pieces of the rug they could find. They thoroughly examined the ground beneath and around where it had been. The tension was sky high. Even seasoned officers felt it. If the dogs had alerted, they expected to find something, if not a body, then maybe blood evidence or bones. However, to the surprise of everyone, they found nothing of that sort. By about 12:30 p.m., the preliminary tests on site came back negative for any human or animal remains on the rug pieces. No bones, no decomposed tissue, no blood. The rug, though creepy and inexplicable, appeared to be just that, a discarded rug with no sinister cargo. The lead investigator on screen gave a brief statement to the gathered press and to Katie, who was hovering nearby with bated breath. He confirmed that no remains or anything observable had been found with the rug. The carpet itself was taken by the police for further examination in a lab, just to be absolutely sure no microscopic evidence was present. But as of that moment, there was no conclusive findings of any foul play. Essentially, aside from the carpet and some bits of old rubber backing, there was nothing in that hole. For a moment, there was silence, almost confusion. Then a mix of emotions erupted. Katie let out a huge sigh of relief, maybe the biggest of her life. There's a video she posted just after, where she's practically giddy, if almost a bit perplexed. In it, she says, "They have covered the hole. This has been the most insane experience of my life. No, they didn't find a body. They found a mother effing rug with some rubber." In that clip, you can hear the nervous laughter in her voice. She even emphasizes, as if needing to convince herself, "There's no body, there's no body." Honestly, let's praise the Lord there's no body. She was overjoyed that her home wasn't a crime scene and that no grieving family needed to be notified of a loved one's remains in her yard. The nightmare scenario was over. She did, however, immediately acknowledge the lingering oddities. The question remains of why the dogs sat. Both dogs, not just one, she told her followers, shaking her head in disbelief. I don't know why. The other question that remains is, who broke my laptop? Those two unresolved questions would become the final riddles of this saga. In her TikTok update, Katie looked equal parts relieved and stupefied. I'm so confused, she admitted with a half smile. She even quipped, at least it's not haunted, referring to her earlier ghost theory being presumably wrong since no body, no ghost was found. One could practically hear the collective exhale of many viewers who had been emotionally invested, happy no one was dead in the yard, but also slightly confused that after that it really was just a rug. The police packed up their equipment, removed the tent, and filled the hole back in, patting the dirt down as neatly as they could. They thanked Katie for her cooperation and left, taking the rug pieces for records. The official investigation concluded with a statement reiterating that nothing was found and there were no plans for further action. In short, case closed, insofar as it had ever been a case. Local news outlets broadcasted the outcome. No remains found in backyard rug investigation. Headlines updated to reflect the anticlimax. The rug was just a rug. Some newscasters almost sounded a bit disappointed when reporting that nothing nefarious was uncovered, as if they too had been caught up in the suspense. Katie, in her brief interactions with reporters, maintained a positive tone, clearly grateful the result was benign. She even told one news station that she was stunned by the following her videos had gained, and that she intended to use her newfound spotlight to help a good cause. Specifically, she mentioned raising funds for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Back on TikTok, Katie's final reveal video went up. There is no body, she wrote emphatically on screen, with a caption like, but I still want to know who broke my laptop. In the video, she recounted how the dig yielded nothing but the rug and some rubber bits. She showed shots of the police covering the hole and thanked everyone for caring so much. Finally, with a triumphant grin, she concluded, there's no body, yay. This was accompanied by a little happy dance and jazz hands, classic TikTok-style closure to the story. The response from her viewers was celebratory, humorous, and a tad bittersweet. Thousands of comments poured in, many just relieved and congratulatory. OMG, I'm so glad it's nothing bad, wrote one user. Another teased, okay, but who else low-key wanted a plot twist? Some made light of their own morbid investment. One top comment joked, why am I bothered that there wasn't a body? Poking fun at the weird human tendency to feel let down when reality isn't as dramatic as fiction. Another popular comment read, I don't know what to do with my life now. Clearly, someone who had lived and breathed the rug updates and now felt the void of the mystery's end. Indeed, a few people humorously lamented the conclusion, showing just how deeply the audience had been hooked on the idea of a grisly discovery. It was as if an addictive TV series had ended its season with a mundane resolution, leaving viewers half laughing at themselves for being so invested. Of course, plenty of folks expressed pure joy that no one was hurt and that Katie's house was not a burial ground. Many commended her for handling the situation responsibly by involving the police, albeit after some nudging. Katie's follower count by this point had ballooned to nearly 2 million on TikTok, with another 40,000 on Instagram. In under a week, she had gone from an unknown mom next door to a viral sensation with a massive platform. It's no wonder she was, as she said, the most confused she'd ever been. How do you reconcile the sheer normalcy of your life with the insane viral journey you just experienced? With the rug mystery ostensibly solved, or at least concluded, one might expect this to be the end of the story. For many viral internet moments, this would be the fade out. Audience gets closure, main character returns to everyday life, the end. But this story had another layer to it, one that would reveal itself in the days and weeks following the dig. Not everyone was content to accept that it was just a rug and move on. In fact, a significant subset of the online community began to scrutinize the entire saga with fresh, critical eyes. They asked, was this whole thing the product of chance and coincidence? Or is Katie Santry orchestrating a grand social media stunt? Now that the hysteria of a potential dead body had passed, people started piecing together clues that suggested not all was as innocent as it seemed. The rug scandal might have ended with no crime on the ground, but some believed a different kind of scandal was afoot, one involving deception, clout chasing, and ethical dubiousness. The spotlight was now turning onto Katie herself, not as a hero or victim of circumstance, but as a potential villain of the narrative. In the next chapter of this story, we examine the backlash, the red flags, and the theory that Katie faked a dead body for clout. In the aftermath of the rug excavation, as the dust and dirt settled, the online conversation pivoted significantly. With the immediate mystery solved, many in the TikTok true crime community moved on to the next trending topic. But a sizable group, including some very vocal internet sleuths and commentary creators, stuck around to pick apart Katie's actions throughout the saga. When the thrill of a possible crime vanished, what remained was a lingering sense among skeptics that they had been played. They began to question, had Katie cynically exploited everyone's fear and curiosity for fame? One of the first red flags to gain wide attention was Katie's merchandise. Yes, at the height of the rug hysteria, Katie had apparently begun selling themed merchandise related to the saga. Sharp-eyed followers noticed that she briefly advertised some custom t-shirts or trinkets, perhaps with phrases like, "What's in the rug?" or similar catchy lines from her TikToks. The idea that she was monetizing the mystery while it was still unfolding immediately struck many as tasteless. According to discussions online, Katie launched a small merch line sometime after her videos went viral, but before the Cadaver dog search took place. This timing was critical. It suggested she was cashing in on the story's popularity even as police were gearing up to investigate. When word of the merch spread, backlash swiftly followed. Critics blasted her for profiting off of what could be a serious situation. Imagine selling merch about a dead body that might actually exist. It bordered on ghoulish exploitation. Facing the negative feedback, Katie appeared to take down the merchandise shortly after, as if reconsidering or attempting to scrub the evidence of it. For a moment, someone gave her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was a misguided quick decision that she corrected once she realized it was insensitive. However, the story didn't end there. After the police announced no body was found and the fervor began dying down, Katie quietly put the merch back up for sale. This was confirmed by internet sleuths who tracked her online store or site. To those watching closely, this was damning. It indicated that the only reason she removed the merch was fear of backlash if a body had been found. Once the coast was clear, she resumed selling, presumably thinking it was safe to make some money off the funny viral moment. The fact that she attempted to hide the merch during the sensitive period and then restore it later didn't match up with the timing of her public statements, as one commenter noted. It was seen as a calculated move and it left a bad taste. This revelation led to a wave of disillusionment among people who had initially been fans or sympathetic viewers. The narrative and commentary forums became, Katie was exploiting the situation for personal gain from early on. The rug saga wasn't just a spontaneous viral mystery, it was starting to look like a strategic venture. Then came another contentious incident, the hacking and robbery claim. A few days after the resolution, Katie told her followers about an unfortunate turn of events. According to her, she had been hacked and robbed of the money she'd earned from TikTok during the live stream. On TikTok, popular creators can receive virtual gifts during lives that translate to real money, and Katie had indeed received a lot of gifts during her big live stream. With over 100,000 viewers, some surely sent TikTok coins, etc. Katie alleged that somehow someone hacked her account or payment method and stole the funds she made from those live gifts. This immediately elicited sympathy from her fans. Some suggested setting up a GoFundMe to help her recoup the loss. Others were outraged on her behalf that someone would exploit her like that. However, to more tech-savvy onlookers, Katie's story didn't add up. They scrutinized the details and realized it was highly unlikely that she'd been robbed of her TikTok earnings. For one, TikTok doesn't pay out live gift money instantly. It usually takes days to process to a creator's account, often via a linked PayPal or bank. And bulk payments for views happen on a fixed schedule, often monthly on the 15th. Katie's claim apparently involved money disappearing over a weekend, which seasoned TikTokers pointed out was impossible to access that quickly by anyone, including Katie herself. Essentially, the timeline of the alleged theft didn't line up with how TikTok's payment system works. Moreover, to steal that money, a hacker would likely need to breach her personal accounts, something that left no other trace.
Well, you know you've made it when you get hacked and robbed.
Skeptics theorize that perhaps Katie was fabricating or exaggerating the hack story, possibly to garner sympathy or even donations. Indeed, some speculated she might have been considering a GoFundMe relief fund to cover her stolen earnings, though this remained just speculation as no such fundraiser was confirmed. A YouTube commentary creator named Marky even chimed in with a video supporting the idea that Katie's hack narrative was fishy. When internet commenters started making dedicated videos dissecting your claims, it often fuels the fire of skepticism. This was a second big strike against Katie's credibility. First the merch, now a possibly fabricated victim story about losing money. Meanwhile, Katie's TikTok content after the rug conclusion also drew criticism. Instead of letting the matter rest, she seemed keen to extend her time in the spotlight by pivoting to related content. Since the dead body hypothesis had fallen flat, she leaned back into the paranormal angle. After all, one mystery remained unsolved: the shattered laptop and the weird happenings in her house. So Katie started to frame her house as potentially haunted, tapping into the popular haunted house TikTok niche. She even brought a psychic medium onto a TikTok live to do a spiritual reading of her home. In these sessions, she and the psychic purportedly tried to contact any spirits or get answers about what caused the strange events. This drew thousands of viewers again, many of whom were gifting her during the lives. To cynics, it looked like Katie was opportunistically shifting genres, from true crime mystery to ghost story, just to keep the momentum and money going. Even more disturbing to some was that Katie didn't entirely drop the true crime angle either. She continued to openly speculate about real missing persons cases in connection to a rug, even after police had debunked any body theory. In one instance, she apparently mused whether the rug might have had blood from some decades-old crime, tossing out names of missing people in the region as if to try to keep the murder mystery alive. Observers called this out as highly unethical and insensitive, essentially turning real tragedies into content for her narrative with zero evidence. A Reddit post on the Do We Know Them podcast forum summarized it as, "She's using real missing people, trying to frame it to fit her narrative and keep exploiting the situation. This is highly unethical." Many agreed that invoking actual unsolved cases, implying those victims might have been in her yard, even after authorities found nothing, was way over the line. It was one thing to spin a spooky ghost story for fun, but dragging in families of missing persons was deeply disrespectful. All these behaviors combined painted a picture of someone who is determined to not let the spotlight fade. The initial goodwill and excitement around Katie's story began morphing into distrust and disdain in various corners of the internet. People started labeling her with that most damning of online titles, Clout chaser. Her past actions came under new scrutiny as well. It turned out Katie Santry was no stranger to internet fame chasing. An old article from 2008 surfaced, showing that Katie and her sister had once been super fans of the Jonas Brothers. In fact, they ran one of the first Jonas Brothers fan pages and got interviewed by a teen magazine, J14, about it. In that interview, a teenage Katie quipped something along the lines of, "I follow them on social media. I'm also single, just throwing it out there," clearly flirting with the dream of getting noticed by a Jonas brother. People chuckled at that, but also saw it as early evidence of Katie's craving for the limelight. She and her sister even had a YouTube channel back in the day called Katie and Carly, where they would make videos, sometimes even featuring or interviewing celebrities like Demi Lovato. Some rumors allege that one of them once falsely hinted at dating a Jonas, though that remained unproven hearsay. Additionally, internet sleuths dug up a surprising connection. Katie had a tangential link to a famous viral scandal in the early 2010s. Allegedly, she was involved in the background of the infamous Miley Cyrus Salvia Bong video that leaked in 2010. That was a video where teen idol Miley Cyrus was filmed smoking from a bong, which caused a huge media storm. Katie's face wasn't in that video, but sources, and later some public hints, indicated she was present during the incident or helped leak it. If true, that meant Katie had been orbiting viral controversies for a long time, possibly even aiding and abetting them for clout. She always seemed to be where the online spotlight was, like a moth to a flame. Piecing this together, some commenters concluded that Katie had a pattern of orchestrating or inserting herself into sensational situations. As one Reddit user cynically put it, the rug thing started as a bit of a story. She didn't expect the dogs to actually sit. That's where her plan went off the rails a bit. In their theory, Katie might have planted the rug, or at least knew it was there and hyped it up, hoping to spin a spooky viral tale that would get her followers, but with no intention of it involving actual police or investigation. The cadaver dogs alerting were an unforeseen twist that forced a real investigation. Had the police not investigated or dug the rug up, she would have gone down a similar path as she is now, the user speculated, meaning she'd likely be doing the ghost content regardless. This is admittedly speculation, but it captures the sentiment brewing online, that Katie was essentially running a social media storyline that got out of hand. Another point of suspicion was the initial broken laptop incident. Skeptics asked, what if Katie, or someone in on it, deliberately broke the laptop to create a catalyst for the ghost narrative? It seemed a bold move to destroy one's own computer for a TikTok story, but in the grand scheme of how much clout she gained, some thought she might have considered it worth it. There's no evidence for this except that no alternate explanation ever emerged. It remains genuinely mysterious what happened to that laptop. If it wasn't a ghost, one possibility is a freak accident. Screen defects or temperature could theoretically crack a screen, but very rare. Another is a family member not fessing up, and the third is Katie doing it herself. In any case, the laptop became part of the lore, and to doubters, it was just a prop in her narrative. Critics also pointed to how neatly the whole saga fit into trending content tropes, a mix of true crime, paranormal, and interactive storytelling. It's as if Katie understood the assignment for virality in 2024. Mashup genres, mystery plus ghost story, involve the audience, keep them on the hook with cliffhangers, throw in real-world stakes, like police for credibility, and then pivot to a sustainable niche, the haunted house afterwards. It all felt, some argued, calculated. Too calculated to be pure happenstance. Of course, Katie still had defenders and fans who saw all this as exaggerated backlash. They argued that Katie was just rolling with the punches of sudden fame. Who wouldn't capitalize on an unexpected viral moment? It's not a crime to make merch or content about something that happened to you, they said. To them, Katie was a savvy, if perhaps a bit opportunistic creator who managed to turn a weird personal experience into an entertaining story for millions. And yes, she benefited from it, but so do all viral content creators. In their eyes, the backlash was just haters being cynical after the fact. The truth likely lies somewhere in between pure chance and pure scheme. It's possible Katie genuinely stumbled on the rug and experienced weird events, then simply leaned into the content opportunity when it arose. Perhaps she did get carried away with the attention and made some questionable decisions, like the merch and ghost content, without malicious intent initially. It's also possible she did embellish or encourage certain perceptions, ghosts, potential crime, more than she truly believed, because it made the story spicier, a form of minor hoaxing by omission or suggestion rather than outright lying. What's undeniable is that the rug scandal became a reflection of our times, where the line between reality and entertainment can blur. One day, Katie was a normal person finding a carpet in her yard. The next, she was essentially performing a narrative for an audience of millions. That kind of situation can warp anyone's judgment. Piece by piece, the internet jury assembled a case that Katie had essentially engineered a viral hoax, or at least nurtured a minor mystery into a major media event for her own benefit. Among the allegations, one of the more intriguing was that Katie possibly manipulated the cadaver dog's reaction. How did two dogs false alert in succession? Could something have been planted to trigger them? There's no proof of this, and it ventures into heavy conspiracy. It's worth noting cadaver dogs are not infallible. They can alert on odors from old decayed organic material or even certain chemicals. One theory is that maybe the carpet had once soaked up animal blood or meat juices, say used during a home butchering or something odd decades ago, and traces of that remained. Or one dog could have had a false positive and the second might have been influenced by the scent of the first dog or the handler's expectations. These dogs are trained well but not perfect. The police themselves offered an explanation that it could just have blood on it as a reason the dog sat. Indeed, Katie recounted that an officer told her the dog's alert doesn't necessarily mean there is a body. Still a chance this rug could just have blood on it. If one imagines a scenario where Katie wanted to guarantee a big climactic moment, it's not impossible she could have done something like add a piece of old meat or a dab of blood to the rug area to attract the dogs. But again, that's speculation beyond evidence. Most chalk the dog thing up to a bizarre fluke, one of the enduring unsolved angles of the story. Regardless of how the dogs were prompted, what mattered for Katie's reputation was the growing perception that she was not an innocent bystander in this saga, but an active producer of it. The phrase "for clout" kept coming up. It's a somewhat new term in popular culture, essentially meaning to do something intentionally for social media fame and influence. To many, it appeared that Katie had done exactly that, stoked a wild narrative, and when reality didn't deliver a corpse, she kept the story alive with ghosts and conspiracies, all to keep herself trending. Katie, for her part, did respond to some of the criticism, albeit indirectly. She maintained that she never expected things to blow up like this, and she was just as swept up in the craziness as everyone else. She insisted that she genuinely thought there could have been something and was prepared to accept whatever outcome. On questions of monetization, she tried to justify that using the attention for good, like charity fundraising, or harmless fun. Selling a few funny shirts wasn't evil. She expressed frustration in some comments about people accusing her of wrongdoing, saying she didn't deserve the harassment that came with the backlash. It's true that as the narrative shifted against her, some corners of the internet likely went too far, possibly sending her nasty messages or doxing attempts, an unfortunate reality of internet pile-ons. If anything, the scenario became a case study in how a person can be vaulted to fame and then swiftly dragged down by public opinion, a very 21st century cycle. Once the dust settled, what were we left with? On a factual level, a ruined patch of lawn, a destroyed laptop, some shredded rug pieces, and no clear answers as to how or why that carpet got buried in the first place. Strangely, the original mystery, the rug itself, never got a definitive explanation. The elderly former homeowners, through their daughter, didn't recall anything about it. They never buried pets there and were just as perplexed. Some local theories emerged. One suggested maybe a previous neighbor, not the owners, had a conflict or incident and buried something on the edge of the property line. One particularly colorful online rumor posited that a neighbor had buried a rug after a violent altercation with someone back in 2014, which resulted in that person's death, though that story sounded far-fetched and didn't have evidence behind it. Columbus locals on message boards debated if the area had any history. The People magazine Facebook post on the story had comments speculating about farmland and buried items from before the subdivision was built. One possible mundane explanation is that during construction or landscaping decades ago, an old carpet was used as fill or erosion control. People have indeed sometimes used carpets as weed barriers or to fill holes, strange as it sounds. Another update mentioned a detail via a police source that the area used to be farmland that was bulldozed for houses, implying the rug might have been left during development. Maybe it wasn't even the previous family at all. It could have predated the house. Unfortunately, with no clear records or admissions, the rug's origin remains an open question. It's a bit poetic. The mystery that launched everything is still a mystery, albeit a banal one now that we know it's not hiding a corpse. Katie at one point said, "The curiosity about why that rug is there definitely haunts me." That was early on and likely still true afterwards. She ended up solving the "is there a body" question, no, but not the "why is it there" question. Then there's the other unresolved thread, the broken laptop and supposedly ghostly happenings. No answer ever emerged for that either. If we dismiss the ghost explanation, which most will since no evidence of a death was found to substantiate a haunting, we're left with a few possibilities. A member of the household accidentally or mischievously broke it and never owned up to it. Maybe a small child and the others truly didn't know. A freak accident. Some laptops with swollen batteries or certain malfunctions can crack a screen, but the accompanying room mess makes that less likely. Or the oddest possibility, some kind of minor seismic event or pressure change. That last one's reaching. It's highly unlikely a tremor would only break a screen and knock a few items over without anyone feeling it. For those who favor the skeptical view of Katie, the laptop might be considered a deliberate prop in a narrative. For those who believe Katie, it's a genuinely weird occurrence that remains unexplained. Thus, the ghost of the rug's past ? Lingers as well. Ironically, after everything, some of Katie's followers still joke that maybe it was a ghost after all, just not of a murder victim. "Who broke my laptop?" Katie exclaimed in her final no-body video. It's almost a meme now, a playful reminder that even though the big question got answered, the inciting incident did not. In a broader sense, what does this whole saga say about internet virality and influencer culture? There are a few takeaways. In the end, Katie Santry remains a somewhat polarizing figure. To some, she's an entertaining storyteller who gave the world a bizarre little mystery to enjoy for a week. To others, she's a cautionary example of influencer opportunism gone too far. The question posed in the title of this narrative, "She faked a dead body for clout?" might not have a definitive yes or no answer. It's possible parts were faked, or at least exaggerated for clout. It's also possible Katie truly was just reacting to events as they came, albeit with an eye for drama. The jury of public opinion is split, and perhaps that's fitting for a story filled with uncertainty and dual perspectives. As the rug scandal fades in internet history, its legacy lives on as a cautionary tale and a case study. True crime enthusiasts and content creators alike still reference it, sometimes in jest, sometimes in earnest discussions about ethics. The phrase rugging even jokingly entered some TikTok vernacular as shorthand for hyping a non-issue into a viral mystery. For example, "Is this guy rugging us for views?" Someone might comment if they suspect a prank. For Katie, life presumably goes on. Perhaps she's still making TikToks, though none likely to reach the virality of her magnum opus. One hopes she returns to some normalcy with her family, and that her son can one day laugh about the time mom thought there was a ghost in the house. Hopefully, the backlash did not impact her offline life severely. These things tend to be storms that blow over, at least until the next person's folly becomes the internet's obsession. One could imagine the hypothetical Netflix documentary about this incident, the dramatic reenactments of her digging, the sound of TikTok notifications pinging incessantly, the interviews with neighbors, or the local police chief saying, "We truly thought we might find Jimmy Hoffa in there or something." It does have all the elements of a compelling docudrama. An every woman protagonist, an eerie mystery, a roller coaster of suspense, and a morally gray resolution that sparks debate. In such a documentary, the closing lines might be something reflective like, "In the end, the only thing buried under Katie Santry's yard was an old rug." But what the rug scandal truly uncovered was the peculiar way our society craves and creates stories in the age of social media, sometimes digging up ghosts and bodies where none exist, all for the thrill of the narrative. If there's a lesson to be learned, it might be this: approach viral sensations with curiosity but also with caution. Enjoy the ride, but keep a critical mind. And for those creating content, remember that truth still matters. If you cry possible body enough times, people will eventually demand receipts. The intersection of real-world stakes and online theatrics is a risky crossroads. Perhaps, too, the rug scandal invites a bit of self-examination for the audience. Why were so many of us hoping, even subconsciously, for a dead body to be found? The disappointment some expressed when the ending was mundane suggests that the idea of a grisly discovery had provided a morbid thrill. It's a natural human fascination with the macabre, magnified by the interactive, compelling environment of social media, where being part of a sensational event feels exciting. A commenter's semi-serious lament, "I simply cannot accept this answer," regarding the no-body outcome, encapsulates how reality can feel like a letdown compared to the vivid stories we create in our minds. The rug scandal, in a way, reminded us that real life doesn't always tie up in a dramatic bow, and sometimes that's for the best. So did Katie Santry fake a dead body for clout? The evidence suggests she at least fanned the flames of a ghost and murder mystery far beyond its genuine merits, and she certainly reaped clout from it. Whether that amounts to faking or just opportunistic showmanship might be semantics. What's clear is that she became a central character in an uncanny modern fable, one that held a mirror up to how quickly fact, fiction, and fervor can intermingle in the digital age. As we close this long-form narrative, imagine one last scene. Katie's standing in her backyard, the autumn breeze scattering leaves over the freshly filled hole. She's not holding a shovel anymore, but her phone, as she records herself with a wry smile. Well guys, I guess sometimes a rug is just a rug. The camera pans to that patch of soil, unremarkable, silent. But hey, she adds with a twinkle of drama, if anything else weird ever happens, you'll be the first to know. So do you think Katie really bankrolled this rug thing and tried to milk it for as long as possible? Let me know in the comments.